Our next speaker is Anne-Marie Walters, Industry Marketing Director, Process and Resources, Bentley Systems. She is responsible for the global industrial process, offshore, and natural resources industries. Anne is a chemical engineer with the combined experience of marketing and engineering, having worked for system vendors, system integrators, and oil and chemical owner-operators. She is especially passionate about establishing the value of engineering information in the world of operations and what real differences information technology can make to the challenges that both EPCs and owner-operators face. Please welcome Anne on stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Sharada said, my name is Anne-Marie Walters. This is my first time in India, so I'm not sure what the Indian is to say, but good afternoon. I'm very, very pleased to be here with you and delighted I've been invited to speak. I'm going to talk a little bit about Bentley and what we mean in this world of Internet 4.0 and smart manufacturing, and a term we use called asset performance modelling, which is our terminology for that, and hopefully introduce you to some exciting new technologies that are being used throughout the world. I'm actually a British national, but I live in the USA, so I hope I'll bring a global perspective to what we're doing. So, okay, first, a little bit about Bentley. Not as many of you think, we are not the vibration monitoring company from Nevada. We are a software company based in Pennsylvania. We have a larger Indian operation here as well, and our mission is to provide software for engineers and engineering professionals to sustain infrastructure. And by infrastructure, this is a very complicated slide, we really mean the built world. Buildings, airports, roads, railways, all of that kind of thing, as well as the area I'm responsible for, which is the whole industrial process and mining and oil and gas and offshore facilities. This is what we mean by infrastructure. And you can see, you probably can't see because the writing's too small, we offer a range of products. We're most well known for design and build applications, but as I'll get on to say, we've begun a big focus on the owners of these infrastructure assets, which we actually launched and introduced at the ARC International Forum now 4 years ago. So we are a strong partner with ARC. We very much listen to what ARC tell us about the markets, and particularly what owners of infrastructure are asking for. And we are, if you're interested in ARC market reports, this is the one we're most featured in, the engineering design tools for plants and infrastructure, and you can see we're ranked #1 in these areas. Just as an interesting, innovative commercial model, we have a pay-as-you-go type a way of licensing our software, and this is something that ARC have begun to track for software as a service, and being able to get access to technologies without having to buy the perpetual license outright. And this is something we've been doing for many years, and we certainly lead the market in this area. One of our uniquenesses is we have a common data environment, and around which we have, for graphical modelling, MicroStation, that many of you have heard of, is our common graphics environment. We have ProjectWise for collaboration, and collaboration amongst engineering firms as they design and build the projects. And then, as I mentioned, 4 years ago, we introduced AssetWise, which is really a common data environment for owners, where we're not necessarily providing engineering models, but operations models for those owners. And all of this is now is all within a common data and information environment, which is our kind of big data and Internet of Things. You may be interested, one of the things we found as we looked at how to size the infrastructure market, there isn't actually any reports out there that look at the infrastructure market overall, so we made up our own, and we now monitor the top 500 infrastructure asset owners in the world, both public and private organisations. And I'll be happy to share this top 500 list. We kind of have normalised the value of their infrastructure assets across the world. There's a big proportion of private organisations as well as public organisations, and spread across the many industry sectors as well. Gives you an idea of the sort of value of infrastructure assets around the world, which we monitor our progress with those owners. And one of the things that our CEO came to the ARC International Forum in Orlando in February and basically said we've now penetrated 100 of these top 500 firms, and basically we're helping these owners manage over $4.5 trillion worth of assets. So what exactly are these owners using in our world? Well, we have a way of looking at the world which is Building Information Modelling, or BIM, and there's the level 1 of BIM, which is basically the 3D models to design and build your assets. And at BIM level 1, you're looking at visualization, you're looking at design and combining these to prevent clashes, to make sure everything comes together all right on the site, to prevent errors in drawings and models, and basically get your plant worked out before you start to build it. And there's a few standards around for this, ISO 15926 and BS 1192 in the UK industry, where those are mandated BIM standards now that are being used across the world. And this then goes on to BIM level 2, where you start to use these models to analyse and simulate the world and analyse whether the plant's going to fall over in a wind or how it's going to perform over time, particularly in our offshore environments, how waves are going to batter the structure and how long it's going to last. We also have taken these models and broken them down so that you can do construction modelling and work out the individual work packages in order to build these assets as well. And Valentine alluded to this earlier. One of our partnerships, so we call this in the area of reality modelling, basically. And one of our partnerships is with the Siemens organisation, and we've been working with Siemens now for 3 years. We're working with the Siemens Process Organisation in Comos that you just heard from, to provide the physical 3D design of the assets to that environment. But this particular partnership we announced just last year, or extension of our partnership that we announced last year, was really focusing on the existing world and modelling the existing, what you've actually got existing in your factories. And I'm going to show you'll see an animation going on here. I hope it's working, where Siemens have embedded into their modelling of factory environments our tools for handling laser scanned point cloud data, so that you can actually model your facility and your potential designs against what you've actually got. So bring in a laser scan of your existing environment, including where your existing robots are. Move things around. Can you reorientate things in order to fit them in? What you just saw was the envelope in which the robot is working. Can you just slightly twist that robot so you can squeeze in another robot in order to produce a different product even in your existing facility, and fundamentally bring new products to market way quicker because you can adapt your existing facilities to deliver those new products. And this is the kind of advanced simulation and advanced reality modelling that we're now working very closely with Siemens to deliver primarily to the manufacturing industry. And you can see that again if you want to come to our booth. And that was using highly detailed laser scans with millimetre accuracy. One of the another advances in technology that we just acquired, and we announced this in February at the ARC International Forum, was the acquisition of a smaller company who takes digital photographs and converts them into 3D models. And what you can see animated in the background there is the model of the city of Tokyo, taken from aerial photography, converted into a 3D model. And this was an acquisition of a company called Acute 3D. The next slide shows a chemical plant, basically, and this This 3D model of the chemical plant was taken by a light aircraft with a digital camera, nothing special, just an SLR digital camera and 250 photographs, then converted into this 3D model basically. And then overlaying that 3D model, those 3D photographs, you can quite quickly create a meshed 3D model that you can then bring into your simulation environments or into your maintenance environments either, and really capture your as-built conditions alongside your operations and maintenance technology processes. Now, our CEO at the ARC Forum in Orlando predicted that by this time next year, which was in February, now we're talking sort of in about 8 months, the use of digital cameras on drones will become a standard part of everybody's maintenance activities in order to just capture what's there already. And I'd noted just before I came out to the conferences here in India that BP have just been given permission to fly drones around their offshore operations in the Gulf of Mexico, and for capturing as-built information about, or as-operated information about their assets in the offshore environment. Saves a lot of time and money in surveys, and this sort of technology very quickly captures what you've actually got there. And that brings me on to asset performance modelling, which is the next slide. Now, imagine being able to bring your accurate 3D model of your facility into your maintenance environment alongside the intelligence of that model and alongside your operating information, and being able to predict what needs inspections and what might fail. And that is what we're talking about in terms of asset performance modelling. We announced 4 years ago our AssetWise initiative in order to provide solutions for owner-operators in the own operations and maintenance environment. And then in 2013, this was back in 2011, in 2013, we acquired a company called Ivara, which we now call AssetWise APM. Ivara is a company that does reliability-centred maintenance. In fact, their founder wrote the book on reliability-centred maintenance. And this is a big data solution, if you like, that actually predicts failure before it actually happens, and gives management a window of opportunity in which to make decisions about whether you maintain this before it fails. And that's the whole notion, if you like, of asset performance modelling, trying to anticipate things before they fail. And one of the things we also updated the ARC have been following this area for quite some time, and since we acquired Ivara, we've added a number of users to our portfolio, and I'll talk about one of those in a moment later. But first, I'd like to just show you something that we've now embedded within the Ivara environment, 3D models, in order to be able to see maintenance in the context in which it needs to happen. This is very important when it comes to the ageing workforce and transferring knowledge from those people who know how something runs, in order to give them an idea of in order for them to pass on knowledge to younger people, to say these are where the inspection points are, this is what how you can actually access this environment, and so on. I'll go on to the next area. We've integrated our 3D models with the asset performance environment, and you can zoom in. This is a 3D model which you've typically had acquired especially if you've had 3D models, and a lot of people do these days. You can zoom in using the maintenance tools. Find out what's going on with that particular area, why things are trending in the wrong direction, instigate some activity, say in SAP. All of these things are integrated together. Direct your inspections to a certain area, and then our technologies will give you that window in which you need to act before something will fail. And that's the kind of thing that we're doing. Now, here's the user case study that I was alluding to. This is TNB Malaysia. They are very similar to the lady who spoke this morning. They're basically the power provider for Malaysia, and they'd instigated a number of performance improvement programs. They'd gone from proactive maintenance to a reliability-centered approach to maintenance. They'd implemented some plant management systems. They'd put in some real-time sensors all over the place. They'd deployed SAP for maintenance management. They also instigated handheld devices for their operators to collect information whilst on site. And they'd also put in some condition monitoring environments for vibration and thermography temperature. But these were individual, and each of these areas they justified individually in order to give them information. But they were still finding unexpected failures and surprises because none of these things were integrated together. So they decided to pull all of this information together, and the asset-wise APM environment is ideal for that, pulling all of this information together in order to help them work out where they needed to make the right decisions and be able to predict what was going on. And that's what they've done. And then last year they awarded Bentley an award for being the most helpful service systems integrator and service provider that they'd had in this environment. And they also entered into our Be Inspired projects award and became a finalist there because they have implemented this system, and they have got documented evidence of how much they've reduced downtime and shutdown and maintenance costs across all of their generation plants. They've also reduced outages, which means that they are literally able to keep the lights on in Malaysia. So that is a little bit about our asset performance management, asset performance modelling environment for reliability-centred maintenance and capturing things before they fail. So that environment tells you what you need to maintain, but what about when's the best time to maintain something? If you've got that 6-month window in which to act, what about when it's best for your business? So one of the other acquisitions we announced back in February at the ARC Forum was the acquisition of an operational analytics company to help us bring that broader business perspective to what we're doing. And this was a company called C3 Global and a product called Amulet. And you've heard a lot about operational analytics, and here you have a software vendor that's more in the engineering design space, but acquiring an operational analytics company in order to give this sort of business context to the decisions. We made the decision in order to make our whole asset performance modelling environment way more robust. And ARC's own Paula Hollywood, who's an analyst in this area, recognises the value of operational analytics to the asset management world in terms of bringing that step change in business performance that you've heard a lot about here. So, who are C3 Global and Amulet? They basically are quite well known, particularly in the engineering world across oil and gas, and you can see a number of their users here, and utility organisations. Going to get to that. The sorts of things that they actually deliver in the oil and gas industry. Apologies if this is a little small. I'll try and read it. But they basically can help predict corrosion. They're pulling all the information together to predict corrosion, to predict when to put chemicals down wells in order to increase production, balancing well production, particularly in the offshore world. In fact, Amulet is the partner with Emerson, who I know are a big process control organisation, to provide the control room dashboards in order to balance production across oil wells, and Chevron and Anadarko particularly are users in that space. Then we also have in the power industry as well, and being able to predict cable and transmission line failures based on wind loading and all of that kind of thing. Water and utilities, and I have a more detailed case study which I'll get into quite quickly in that area. sustainability, and then refrigeration. And there's an interesting case study of a manufacturing company called Danfoss who provide refrigerators to retail stores, and they provide these refrigeration units on the basis of almost as a service, pay-as-you-go type of service. They're providing the refrigerators to the retail stores, and by using predictive analytics and monitoring how many times the weather, how many times people open and shut refrigerators, how full they are, they're able to balance the energy usage for the retail stores and have saved their customers a huge amounts of money in energy costs by being able to provide them with optimum loading and so on and so forth based on the traffic to the refrigerators. And that's the sort of thing that operational analytics is delivering to these companies. But let's go on to the... you may have seen this kind of a chart before, and people have alluded to this kind of thing over the course, and this might be an easier picture to understand. It certainly helps me understand what operational analytics are. You have your information technology systems on the left-hand side, your SAPs, your Maximos, your IT systems that are delivering, your ERP systems that are delivering your finance performance information. And then on the right-hand side, you have all of your operational systems, your process control, your SCADA systems, all of that sort of thing. And operational analytics basically joins the two of those together to provide you with better information and information to help you make better decisions, joining those two areas together. And Gartner cover this area, and certainly one of the reasons why we bought Amulet is because Gartner flagged them as being really a useful vendor in this space. So they basically pull operational analytics basically pulls all of this information together. Now I need to read my notes on this one, sorry. And I'm going to come on to a particular case study. This is South Australia Water in Adelaide. It's I think you've probably got similar areas in India, actually. This is an area where droughts are common, and they've built a desalination plant in order to provide drinking water and potable water for the population in periods of drought. And in fact, the desalination plant was actually a B-inspired award-winning submission in 2009 for Hatch, who built the plant, because there was a lot of optioneering done in order to come up with the best design. However, a desalination plant is a very expensive thing to run, and it's a very expensive way of producing water. So South Australia Water wanted to figure out how they could minimise the time they had to run the plant in order to minimise the cost of producing water. So they used operational analytics first to figure out when they needed to produce water and when and this is what I'm showing here are some outputs and dashboards from the operational analytics side. They basically predicted what the water demand and what the forecast of the supply was from rainfall initially across all of the areas of the South Australia water area. Then they observed how they then plugged in the model of their reservoirs and where they had storage facilities so that they could predict and see when they were low in terms of water and high in terms of water based on rainfall. Then they optimised when they needed to actually produce the water, when the rainfall was least and the demand was highest, and optimise when they needed to run the desalination plant. And they plugged in the maintenance activities so that they knew when they should do maintenance on the plant when it was not needed to produce desalination water, potable water to meet the demand across their regions. And they gave management a very, very visual tool across each of their areas where they had water available in the reservoirs. This is a sort of management dashboard where things are low, what they can actually do. But and basically to balance the water need across their market, their area to meet demand. But the pièce de la résistance, as they were, having done that, they then figured out that it's as I mentioned before, it's a very expensive process to produce water desalinate water to produce drinkable water from seawater. They then factored in the energy costs for running this plant and what the energy tariffs were at those times, and figured out that if they could run the plants at times when energy cost was low, which is typically when at night, when it's dark, when the temperature's low and they don't need air conditioning and stuff like that, then they could actually balance, run the plant not only to meet water demand, but actually to optimise their energy usage and minimise their energy costs. And they actually negotiated a very favourable contract with the energy supplier to use energy at the lowest tariff times. And they saved 30% of their energy bill by doing this, which was a huge amount of money to them. And this, I think, coming back to what Valentine said earlier, if you take this sort of step change and using operational analytics in this way, you literally can save 30, 40, 50% of your costs. And this was deploying information that they already had, information that was available from the weather forecast, from the energy tariffs, from what they knew of that they already had a Bentley model to model their reservoir facilities and things like that, and basically taking existing sources of information and gradually building up the pattern of what and the model of what they really needed to do as a business, and save 30% of their energy costs this way. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, and really I hope I've given you an understanding of what I mean by asset performance modelling now, to model your facilities in reality, basically combining not only the engineering and design models, but with the as-operated information and all of the operational data, plus a whole pile of external factors like weather and production or raw materials costs and supply costs and what the price you can get for your products and what have you, bringing all of this data into very visual models and dashboard environments, which is the sort of thing that Bentley is really very good at, in order for management to make the best decisions at the best time, what to do about the right thing and at the right time to do it. And fundamentally, that's what we mean by asset performance modelling. So with that, I'll conclude and take questions in the break. Thank you.